Welcome, Paolo, to our new podcast. Today's topic all about mortgages, as you are the expert in Dubai. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to
Thank
be
you.
here.
So tell me, people are moving to Dubai. What do they need to expect on the mortgages if they're coming from UK, Germany, or any other country?
Okay. So typically, if you are a resident here in the UAE, you can expect for up to 80% of the property value to be financed by the banks. So that means your down payment requirement in this case will be 20%.
Wow, that doesn't matter where you're coming from which country?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. As long as you are getting an income here, as long as you have a proof of residence here, and as long as you have an Emirates ID.
Okay, so the person needs a residency and Emirates ID.
And a proof of residence. So three things. So typically the misconception here is if you are having a golden visa or an Emirates ID, you can immediately access the resident mortgage. However, you'll need three things to take in place. Your income to be here in the UAE, your Emirates ID and visa has to be here in the UAE, and your proof of residence as well has to be here in the UAE.
Okay, and what about if the person is an expat and doesn't have the residency?
Then they'll be classified as a non-resident.
Okay, but they're still able to get the mortgage.
They can, but it only caps them up to say 60%.
So compared to an expat and a residency, it's 80, 60.
Correct.
And are the chances also very high to get a mortgage
Yeah,
for an
for
expat?
sure. For sure.
Is it much easier?
For an expat, it is. So it really depends on the client's profile because it also has to be dependent on where they work, how many employees are in their company, and how long they've been here in the UAE.
The person is an expat, he wouldn't have a company here. So he needs to show proof of documents, salary slips in his own country. So what are the requirements?
Expats, what do you mean?
A person has no residency as an expat and he's buying a property in Dubai.
So he's an expat, but he doesn't have an Emirates ID.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes. So this will be considered as a non-resident. So there's two profiles the banks will consider. A non-resident, a person who has an income from Germany, for example. Then the resident where the income is coming based from here in the UAE.
Okay, but what does the expat need to show as a proof to get the mortgage of the 60%?
So it differs from bank to bank. Here's the confusing part because different banks have different policies. Some banks have a minimum salary requirement, whereas another bank will have a balance account requirement. So they won't look at your income, they'll look at the money in your bank account.
Okay, so what do they need to provide? The passport copy, for example?
Passport copy, proof of residence for the personal documents. Financial documents will be your salary certificate if you are salaried. If you're self-employed or a business owner, then they'll look at your trade license or company documents, then your 6 months bank statement.
Okay, and what's the average salary they need to get the mortgage?
If you're a non-resident,
Exactly.
at least 25,000.
So 25,000 AED.
AED.
So that's about, say, 5,000, 6,000 euros. So they need to show that for 6 months?
At least 6 months. Just to be safe, 6 months, but some banks will be okay to consider 3 months.
Okay, and so they need to show that, the statement too?
Correct.
So they have the statement, the salary slip, passport copies,
and the proof of residence.
proof of resident, and if they are a company, they have to show the company license. Is it
documents.
much easier for people having a company in another country or having a salary from a company paid? What is more easier or is it the same?
It's more or less the same.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of banks which are specialized in salaried non-resident clients, and there's a few banks that are specialized in both. So in both salaried and self-employed people.
Would you suggest people who are relocating to Dubai to first, maybe if they are planning to buy something, to get property in the mortgage and then do the residency, or do the residency first and then the mortgage?
If they are salaried or business owners,
Both.
might have a different advice on both, because for a salaried individual, they can expect to get a mortgage with their first salary credit coming here in the UAE. Whereas a business owner sometimes may have to wait up to 2 years to get their mortgage as a resident. So there's some cases where if a business owner, for example, is looking to set up his business here, I'd usually advise them, if you really need a home, let's get you a mortgage as a non-resident, get your house, and then do your residence.
Okay, so first step, as you just advised, residency second stage, and get the mortgage in the first stage.
If they are business individuals.
Okay, and if they're salary based?
If they're salary based, they get their first salary credit here in Dubai, we can even assist them in getting a mortgage.
Okay, what are like most clients you have? What do they do?
For salaried individuals, see, I'm going to go side off in a bit, but one of the myths here in the UAE is if you're a newcomer here in the UAE, you cannot get a mortgage until about 6 months of your salary coming in your account. That's somewhat true, but some banks will take an exception on getting you a mortgage on your first salary credit here in the UAE. So it's more of educating the clients that are newcomers here in the UAE and say, hey, we can assist you in getting a mortgage. You don't have to immediately rent a property for 1 year. Rent a property for maybe 2 or 3 months, find your home, and we'll set up your mortgage for you.
So what's like the average? So they're getting the 80%. So for example, I'm looking for 2-bedroom.
Okay.
My wife, I'm looking like say to spend 3 to 4 million AED, about 1 million euro. How are the payments? What money I need to put down? What do I need to show as the latest bank statements? How much salary I need to show? Or if I'm a business owner, can you give me some examples?
Sure. So if you're looking at a 3 to 4 million dirham property value, and if you are well below 40 years of age, you can have a mortgage for up to 25 years, and you can have a fixed rate for say 3 to 5 years. Okay. Now, based on your salary, it will depend on your liabilities. If you have a car loan, if you've taken a personal loan, but assuming you are clean, we'll say around 40 to 50,000 dirhams of salary.
A month.
We'll make it easier for you to
a month for 6 months.
A month for 6 months, or even 1 month if you're a fresh here in the UAE.
Okay, then you're able to get 80% mortgage.
80% mortgage, 20% down payment.
Okay, and what are the, like say the average monthly installment payments?
Say for an 80% of 3 million dirhams, we're looking at about say 10 to 12,000 dirhams a month, depending on the interest rate. 10 to 12,000 dirhams a month.
It's pretty good actually. If you have the first payment, and then if you, for example, if you're renting something for 2-bedroom, depending on the area, of course, but you will be expecting to pay between 100 and 200,000 AED. Right. So even putting that these 10, 12,000 a month, it's already the mortgage for your own home, isn't it? Correct. It makes more sense, and the value is just increasing all the time. An example, I'm a business owner with the same case. How's the process there? How much money do I need to show? How much financial statements I have to show?
So if you are a business owner, say if it's at least running for at least 6 months, we can try to get you a mortgage, but it's only going to be up to 60%. So your down payment requirement here will be 40%. What you'll need to show is your 6 months of bank statements, company license, passport, Emirates ID, and visa. But if you've been running for at least 2 years, then we have a better chance of getting you up to 80%.
But what do I need to show on the funds? Like how much money has to be on my account for the business, on my personal account, salaries?
No, so that doesn't really matter. On the account, on the money in your account or personal account, what matters is the turnover of your business.
Okay, so for example, I've made a turnover of 2-3 million. Is that already good amount per year for the last 2 years?
For sure, it is. It is something that we can look into because, again, different banks have different ways of calculating your income. So some will ask for your audited financials in the last 2 years. Some won't ask for it, but will ask for your VAT returns in the last year, for example. So different ways of calculating it. So you might not be eligible with HSBC or ENBD, for example, but we might be able to work out something for you with ADCB.
But does it matter which bank you go with?
No, they're all given the 80% as long as you're eligible. Interest rates will differ, of course, but more or less it's a similar mortgage process how one bank does it compared to another.
Okay, so I'm a business owner and the important thing is the turnover, but does it also matter what profit I have at the end of the year or every month, or also showing a salary on my personal bank account? Do I need to show that?
The salary in your bank account will be considered as your profit, or will be considered as your dividend.
Okay.
And your profit percentage will play a factor in this thing. Okay. So it does.
So, but for example, am I having a salary for the last 6 months, which is paying me, say, 30,000 every month? Is that more to get a mortgage? Or if I'm having a salary just of a 5,000-10,000 a month, would I also be able to get the 80%? Or does it depend really on case to case?
It really depends on case to case, because there's no black and white answer for this. So it's not a yes or no. It's more of looking in the full spec of your documents and finding out which bank works best for you.
So if you have clients coming to your inquiries, would you always advise, because of the rents are increasing all the time, and they have, say, some cash available, as you say, the 20%, say, a few 100,000 dirham, maybe 100 or 200,000 euro
Right.
to really go with the mortgage if they are planning to stay long term and they want to have a nice townhouse or a nice villa, so certain areas to really get a mortgage than spending all the time on renting something?
It depends on the clients. I
Yeah.
might be biased because I'm a mortgage advisor.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me, my objective is to advise them on giving a mortgage. But it really depends. Like my personal view is if you're looking to stay here in Dubai for less than 5 years, a mortgage might not make sense for you because you want the flexibility to move from one house to another, move here in Dubai or move back to your home country. But if you have a long-term view of say 10 years above, then yeah, mortgages might make sense for you in this case because you're going to throw 10 years of rent. Might as well make it towards your equity.
But the thing is, if you're buying something and you think you don't know if you're going to stay 10 or 15 years on that property, you can still like rent it out or sell
Yeah,
it. Is
for
that
sure.
possible?
For sure. There's no limits. There's
Yeah.
there's not a rule here in the UAE where if you take a mortgage, you're gonna have to stay with it for the whole 25 years or 10 years or 5 years. You can sell it after 2 years. You can sell it after 3 years. You can even rent it out, do whatever you want.
So
once the property
you're
is
able
yours.
to rent it out. You don't
Yes.
need no official paper to sign that you're allowed to rent it out to someone.
You can rent out, you can do Airbnb with it as long as the title deed is under your name.
But then, for example, if the rent's increasing all the time and the value of the properties is still going up, because if you compare some major cities in the world, New York, London, Los Angeles, Berlin, the house prices are still very high compared to Dubai. You can still get some good properties for certain low value. So that value will just go up. So it's much better sometimes to get a mortgage. And then if you're not going to live in it, like you say, you can rent it or you can sell it and you can make some good profit compared to renting it out. Because renting, you're just throwing the money away in the end. Yeah.
Like funny enough, even with the rental prices here in the UAE being at an all-time high, at the same time, interest rates are at its peak as well. So even though the interest rates are high at the moment, we're reaching about 7%, 7.5%. It still makes more sense to rent a property, buy a property. Buy a property than renting it. Because if you're renting something that is extremely high in rental prices, it's going to the landlord's pocket. Whereas if you're mortgaging it, your interest rates might be high, but it's still going back to your own pocket.
Exactly, that's what I mean. And I've been renting now since last 4 or 5 years because always switching with my wife places, different areas. But then I got the knowledge of different developers and apartments and things like this. So that's the thing. So I always source for the right deal, and I always find a perfect apartment. Yeah. And then what happens? The apartment gets sold, and the person moves in. So I have to look for something else. It happened again. Because I find a really crazy deal with a nice apartment. After I move in, the rent price already increasing. What I'm getting, you can't even get anymore.
Really?
So every time it gets sold, so we have to move again. So that's why I would buy something myself or with a mortgage, depends, that can happen to anyone in the end, because if you're renting something, you're never sure that you have to stay in if you move again. So then when you move again, you have to find something where the rent, most cases, will increase again. So that's why the mortgage is, if you can, more advisable.
It is, especially if you can take a fixed rate for 3 or 5 years. You don't have to worry about your landlord increasing your rent next year by 20% or 15%, 10%. You're going to be fixed for the whole 5 years. So what you're paying from month 1 up until year 5 is going to be the same.
And how does it work? Say a client inquires or sees your website, Googles it from the UK, Spain, or Germany, and they see, okay, there's a mortgage in Dubai. So how's the process? If they see the website, do they call you, WhatsApp you? Is it a form to fill in?
Right. So if they land on our website from, say, Google, for example, or any other platforms that we currently on, they fill in their details. They put their age, their salary, where their income is from, what their property value they're looking to purchase. Then they upload their documents. Once they've uploaded their documents, they're going to be sent over to one of our mortgage managers. And we'll get on a call with them, discuss them the options that they currently have, and if they're happy with the mortgage regulations, mortgage products, then we'll do the applications for them to submit to the bank for pre-approval.
So quite quick, actually.
It is. We can get a pre-approval generally for resident clients, and if it's a salary case, like a clean salary case, we can get a pre-approval within the same week.
Wow, same week. So do most cases, do they really upload all the documents and then no questions asked
For the banks or from our side?
from your side?
From our side, we'll take so once a client uploads the documents, we'll send it to our internal review team. They'll take a look at it. If there's anything that's missing, we go back to the client. Majority of the times, we have to go back to the client to ask for a couple of details or say a missing bank statement, just to make sure that when we upload it to the bank, we'll save time instead of waiting for the bank to revert back to us 2 to 3 days later saying, oh, this document is missing. We're doing it now from our side.
Okay, so they upload the documents. You also call them, WhatsApp them, email them?
Yeah, well, sure. So once I get the documents or once I get the client's details, I call them immediately just to make sure that they're on the same page with us when it comes to expectations of the mortgage and how a mortgage works here in the UAE. I give them a brief just so they're comfortable enough stepping into the mortgage process with us rather than blankly or blindly following our orders when it comes to the mortgage process.
Okay, so if the client gets referred to you, you're also the relationship manager then for the client, also in the long-term run. If they have any questions or something, they always come to you?
Yeah, for sure. They can.
Yeah.
Generally, once a mortgage is completed, they'll be assigned a specific RM from the bank side. But if they have any further questions, I'd be happy to assist them throughout the mortgage.
And do you visit also clients at home, or do they also mostly come to the office if they don't do it online?
Frankly speaking, we do majority of our deals on calls. But if they want to sit face-to-face with me, I'd be happy to set up a meeting. Majority of the times, they come to the office, greet each other, introduce ourselves, and we'll take the process forward.
And how can they find you? Like what's the site name called? How can they contact you?
So our website is useholo.com. And if they want to see me specifically, I got Instagram, paolo.mortgages.
So anyone can just contact you on your Instagram, or they can go to the website and then they can ask for the mortgages. And they can even, if they say they can WhatsApp or call the company or call you, you would just advise them free of charge.
Free of charge. Yeah. We always advise on mortgage consultations for free.
And do you see a massive increase in mortgages in the last 2, 3, 4 years in Dubai?
2, 3, 4 years, tough call because we had COVID happening. So there was a quiet period during that time. But that was also the time where majority of the mortgage buyers made the right decisions because the interest rates were more of 0.4% compared to 5.2% today. So that's a big jump in like the last 2 or 3 years. But even with the interest rates being high today, we're still getting a massive influx of mortgage buyers.
And do you think it's still going to go higher and higher all the time as the rents are going up?
Rents are going up and the interest rates is signaled to go down in the next 3-4 quarters. So I do expect a lot more mortgage buyers coming in because their eligibility is increased at that point of time.
But there's also a risk, isn't it? Like if you see other countries like USA, everyone's getting mortgages, get mortgage and mortgage. So it could also happen. People get too greedy, say, okay, I will also get a mortgage, but then suddenly maybe they lose a job because there's so many people moving here and wanting jobs. So what happens then if they really can't pay the mortgage anymore?
So if they can't pay the mortgage anymore, obviously there will be some warning calls from the bank, warning emails. But if they cannot really make the mortgage payments, they can do 2 things. One, either sell the property before the banks foreclose, or they wait it out until the banks foreclose on the property. But just a bit on the US part, I believe the US happened, or the US mortgages were very, very lenient to people. But it's more towards the private institutions rather than the actual banks giving the mortgage. Whereas here in the UAE, for example, they'd have to really see the consistency of your income to make sure that you are eligible to pay for your mortgage.
So the risk is much lower in the end because, like you mentioned, in USA, it just was giving you wants the mortgage.
There was a time. There was a time. I'm not sure now.
That's where the crisis come in the end. Yeah?
There was a time when mortgages were being given away like candy to people.
Yeah. And where are the most clients coming from? From which countries, or are they mostly already in UAE?
It's hard to gauge because UAE is a very diversified country. We got UAE, we got people from UK, Germany, all over from Europe, Indians, Filipinos. So it's hard to gauge where the actual people are coming from. It's just when they're in the UAE, they think of buying a property, they need a mortgage, they come to us.
But there are countries which mostly only want a mortgage, like Dutch people. Then you compare Portuguese, they probably most cases they buy properties, they don't mortgage. So is there any like specific country where you say these mostly always get a mortgage, and countries where they don't need a mortgage?
I actually have an opinion on that. It's when people are in their country, they think of mortgages. But as soon as they come to UAE, they forget about mortgages. Because first thing, the thing in their mind is, oh, where can I rent a property? Should I rent in downtown, Business Bay, or Palm Jumeirah? This is what we were having off camera as well, our conversation, where in Germany, for example, as soon as you graduated, you're already thinking of getting a mortgage, getting a house.
It's in the mindset
your
from the
first house.
families already.
Yeah, you got your first car, then your first
Yeah.
house. Whereas here in the UAE, people have been living, regardless of your nationality,
Yeah.
whether you're in Germany,
Yeah.
UK, you've been living here in the UAE for 5-10 years
Yeah.
now, and you still don't have a mortgage. You don't have a house. You might have a mortgage back home, but not here in the UAE. So I think, regardless of your nationality, it's just when you step in the UAE, you probably think that you're only going to be here for 2 years, and then you look back and you've spent about 10 years already. So that's why you don't think of getting the mortgage.
Do you think a lot of Asian people also inquiring for mortgages?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
It's increasing?
It's increasing. It's more to do with people getting the knowledge or getting the awareness that they could be taking a mortgage here in the UAE, and it's easy. It's an easier process.
And what countries, like China, Korea, Japan?
China, India, Korea, Japanese I haven't seen much yet. Definitely Chinese people, especially when they're relocating here in the UAE.
And where can you support the people? What languages do you speak?
English and Tagalog only.
Tagalog only. What country is that?
Philippines.
Philippines. So you can
my home country.
So you can you can support the Philippines in the end.
For sure.
And the English speaking people. And in your company, do you have all languages?
We do. We do have a variety of languages there. We got the Arabic speakers and a couple more.
So you can support like worldwide in the end. If you have English, you have German, you have the Asian, Arabic, as you mentioned. Right. Yeah. So you can Spanish.
Anyone who wants to take a mortgage, we can assist them with it.
Yeah. And how big is your company?
Currently, we are a team of about a little less than 30 people, 30 mortgage managers. Admins are not included, of course. But yeah, we're a team of about 30 mortgage managers.
When has the company been established? Do you have also a company in other countries?
We're looking to. Right now, they're looking to expand in Saudi, but their vision for the next couple of years, several years, will be to expand all over GCC and hopefully globally. So.
And is it, just talking about Saudi, is it already possible to get mortgages in Saudi and buy properties?
I am not specialized in the Saudi market yet, but I did hear some news about expats being able to purchase in Saudi now. It's been released, but I'm not sure if they can take a mortgage.
What's like the average amount which you have a client buying a property? Are there also clients buying properties, say, for 5, 10, 20, 30 million dirham for villas?
For sure, there are. There is a luxury market, and some of them do require mortgage assistance as well. So we do have those type of buyers.
And even like, say, big investors, so they want to buy a hotel or a big apartment complex. Do you also finance things like that?
Yes, so that's more leaning towards with a commercial type of lending. We do have a commercial team in our office as well that assists on that.
So it's also big market. It's possible. What do you know the requirements for that case?
Unfortunately, not yet. So it's a separate department in our office, whereas for me, I just specialize in the residential side of mortgages.
So it's pretty good actually how your company is structured, yeah? Because you have a certain people for that apartment and that one for these. So it's not like you're doing everything. Correct. Because you need an expert for that field in the end.
Correct. Because it's a whole different type of ball game. They'd like to say, to execute on a commercial lending, because you'd have to look into a lot of other details. It's not as simple as you getting a salary, then we'll get you a house for 1.5 million. I'll look at your bank statements. It's a different viewpoint when it comes to commercial lending.
Your company are just doing mortgages, yeah? Correct?
Only mortgages.
As you mentioned, there's companies that are doing also mortgages and real estate.
Correct.
So what's the advantage of you just doing the mortgages?
For us, it's purely mortgages. So we don't have a real estate where we transact on the sellers as well. We do have a concierge service team. So our concierge service team is, say, for example, a client comes to our website, he inputs his details, and he's not being assisted by a real estate agent yet. Okay. We introduce him to the concierge team, and he approaches the partnered agencies that they're working with. So they will interact with the sellers, or not the sellers, but the seller agents. for those partnered real estate agents.
Okay. And for example, the client is outside of the country and everything's approved. Does he need to come here for signatures?
He does, but only at the later stages of the mortgage process. That's towards the final approval or final offer letter. That's when he has to fly here, set up his bank accounts as well, and sign the final offer letter.
So you have to sign the final offer letter, and anything else he needs to do?
Open his bank account.
So he needs to open his bank account. So these two things are mandatory
to be here.
To be here. Correct. And to get the mortgage. So the mortgage has to be, so he needs the bank account, but he doesn't have a residency.
That's fine. They'll open an offshore account for him.
Okay.
So there's 3 mortgage process that he can do, or 3 mortgage process in general. One is the pre-approval, is when the banks determine the eligibility of the client. We can start doing this process while he is abroad. Valuation, which is when the banks determine the value of the property. We can do this as well while the client's abroad. Final approval, we can initiate the final approval without him being here. But once the final offer letter is issued, that's when we'll need him to fly here, to sign the final offer letter, visit a bank's branch to open his bank account.
Okay, so he needs to plan in a day, 2
I
days.
would say at least a week or 2, just to be safe. Just to be safe, at least a week or 2.
If he comes for the signature and the bank, it should go pretty quick, no?
It does, but some banks, for example, when you open a bank account, you'd have to wait for the verification where you put your thumb fingerprint, and you have to wait for the credit card or the debit card that comes along with your account. So in some cases, I'd advise them to stay at least a week. Just if there's any error in the process, you can at least go back to the bank's branch to arrange.
And do you support him on the bank opening, or do you suggest him some banks, or do you work with a company?
No. So when it comes to open up the bank account, specifically tied up to the mortgage, we'll send him to the bank branch in which he's been taking his mortgage with.
Okay, and then they will support him, and then so it's an easy, smooth process.
Yes.
So the client, if he's doing it from outside, he comes here, just plans in 1 or 2 weeks, can keep his open return ticket, for example, if he's not staying here.
Right.
Go to the signature and then the bank account. So he can't give anyone else a POA to sign it. He needs to come here, mandatory, yeah?
Mandatory, yes. Ideally, yes. There's some cases where we've managed to get a POA, but it's a strict process and some banks don't allow it, and very few banks only approves of this POA signing.
So in the end, before the client is coming and he has these criterias, then you could check, okay, we have to go for that bank because he's not able to come here to make the POA, for example. It's possible.
It is possible, but again, we also have to make sure that the client's eligibility fits the bank's criteria.
So there are a lot of things to
a lot of things.
That's why they need to come to a real mortgage advisor to give them right guidance, correct?
Because majority of the times clients will give me a question and they'll expect a black and white answer. I can't give you a specific answer because different clients have different profiles and different banks have different criteria. So it's more to do with matching the client's profile with the bank's criteria. So it's more about personalities matching together.
Well, can a client go directly to the bank, or can the client do a mortgage himself? It's possible.
Sure, it is. It is. Now, where we come in is, instead of, say, for example, a client, if you're looking for a mortgage and you're looking to get the best rate possible for you, and at the same time looking for a bank which is able to work on your profile. Instead of you approaching, say, 20 different banks one by one, you approach us. We know everything. We know all the bank's products that's being offered in the market. We offer it to you. If you want to approach to, say, submit to multiple banks at the same time, we can assist you in that as well.
And that's where the pros are.
We save time.
And they don't pay any extra charges for your service?
No extra charges. And the interest rates that they get is the same as them entering the bank by themselves.
So it's the same with our company, the Emirates Business Setup. So we offer the clients, we can offer them everything. He goes directly to something, he has to do everything himself. So he might choose the wrong option.
And there's no guidance if you approach the bank directly. Because when you speak to a bank rep, they'll only sell you their own products. Like your services, for example, if you approach a specific person, they'll only sell you their products. Whereas with your expertise, you're able to guide the right path for the client to make it easier in the process for them.
But how do you make money then?
So we do, since we are partnered with the banks here in the UAE, any transaction we deal with them, we get a percentage out of it.
Okay. But still many clients think, the Germans, for example, they prefer mostly going to the bank because I think they're getting a better deal.
A special discount.
A better deal. So Is it still this? Is it the same here? You think
No,
like
no.
because they might sell them something which they don't need, correct? This is what I face with the business bank accounts. When you open a business bank account, and this is what I did 5 years ago. They want to sell you some insurance packages or something.
Right.
So that's where we also come in as a business setup. We support the client and all the process. The banker won't sell them anything.
Right. Because typically you'll be sold. I'm not sure how it works with your services, but I'm sure you've encountered where they sell you some unnecessary things that you don't even need.
Exactly.
And you'll be charged like double the price immediately.
Yeah, and you're paying something monthly which you don't need, so it doesn't make sense. So they should always come to a proper expert mortgage, and then like you say, it's free of charge if they are not getting in the mortgage or they're not using your service in a later term. There's nothing to
There's
lose
no
in the
commitment
end.
as well. So typically what people think is if they get a pre-approval, they'll immediately have to use this pre-approval to make a purchase. No, you can get a pre-approval, and if you don't find a property within the 60 calendar days that the bank has allotted to you, you can revalidate it later at a later stage once you've actually found something that you like.
But what happens, for example, if you make the client an offer with the different banks, he could take that and then he go directly to the bank and say, I got this offer, I will come directly to you. Can you make me a better deal?
No.
No?
No. Doesn't happen that way.
But it could happen, yeah?
No.
Would he get anything better? He wouldn't.
No, nothing. No changes in the rate. He could do it. He could approach the bank with our pre-approval, but he won't get a better rate. People think, because I think it happens in the US, I'm not sure in Germany if it happens, where people think that if they can improve their or tweak their credit score, they could benefit at a slightly lower rate. Or if they increase their down payment, they could benefit at a slightly lower rate. Here in the UAE, how you are being offered at a 3 million dirham purchase or a 10 million dirham purchase is the same rate. It will more or less be exactly the same rate.
Okay. Going back to like an investment. So for example, I would want to start my own development. Yeah. I'm buying a plot of land and I'm putting like an apartment complex there. How does that work? What do I need to show as a proof? Say, for example, I have a plot of land. It's like say 20 minutes from Dubai downtown.
Okay.
And I'm building like a 20 storage apartment complex with say 200 units or 300 units.
Right.
How much money do I need to show my business bank account? How much money I need to put down? How much could I get financed?
In this type of financing, it will be going back to the commercial team. But I can give you a brief on what documents you'll be needing. So you'll need your company license. You'll need 3 years of running business, audited financials, passport, Emirates ID, and your company statements.
Would it also work if if I'm saying I'm buy a property, a villa on the Palm Jumeirah and renovate it? Say it costs 20-30 million dirham. Would you also finance that? I'm renovating it, and after 6, 7, 8 months, I will resell it.
You can finance a renovation, but it's through equity release.
Okay.
So it's something that you've already bought in cash or that has appreciated in value. Then you can take your equity out of it to either renovate or purchase another property. So it's a mortgage product that's not actually known in the market, or it's not as well known in the market. So people who have bought properties during COVID, for example, you could buy a villa in Arabian Ranches for about 3 million dirhams. 2 years, 3 years down the line, now it's worth 4.5 million. The person or the individual who has bought it during COVID times can now access the equity based on today's current market value. Because usually, if you have a property that appreciated by 20 or 30%, have you made a profit? Like, I'm asking you, have you made a profit?
If it's now worth 4.5
and I bought it for 3 mil,
yeah,
have you made a profit?
Yeah.
How?
1.5 million if I'm selling it.
1.5. If you're selling.
If I'm selling it, yes.
If you're selling.
Yeah.
If tomorrow it goes down to back to 3 million.
No. Then I made a loss.
You made a loss.
Yeah.
So what equity release does is it allows you to access your profit without selling the property. But you can only do 2 things with this profit. You can either, or equity perhaps, you could either make another purchase or renovate your existing property. So that's
to increase the value.
To increase the value, or just make your living inside the home more convenient for you.
Yeah, thanks for the answers. Very interesting. I think a lot of people, what I know, they have difficulties to get a mortgage. Maybe they never get a mortgage. Maybe they think bad about mortgages, So I think this video can help a lot of viewers.
Hopefully.
To spread around.
Hopefully.
If they're in the UAE or they're thinking to move to the UAE, so they don't need to already rent something, they can already plan the next step and make the proper decision, not lose any money, because living here, having jobs, of course, expenses are also high. But you can lower things by making the correct decision in the end. So just tell the audience again, where can they find you? How can they contact you?
Oh, they can visit our website, use holo.com.
Holo.com.
They can follow me on Instagram, Paolo, Paolo.mortgages.
Nice.
Contact details, I'll share it with you.
Yeah, we will list them down below. Thanks, Paolo. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you, Chris. Pleasure being here.